AI will let businesses do more with less. And with that said, it means that as a business owner, as a business leader, as an IT leader, if you are not proactively trying to do more with less, I mean, at some point, capitalism takes over, right? It's supply and demand. If more people can do more with less, if they can supply more with less, whether it's products or services, the cost to deliver those will go down. And if your costs do not go down and your competitors' costs do, there is nothing stopping them from edging you out of the market.
All right, well, welcome to episode 1 of Voices of Verticomm. This is the very first episode of Verticomm's podcast. We're branching out into media and content endeavors. So who are we is, I think, a good place to start today.
Should I go first? Do you want me to go first on who we are?
Yeah,
All right,
I was going to ask you.
And then I'll hand it back to you because I
Awesome.
think you're an important part of this as well. So
Cool.
So I am Will Martin. I'm the CTO for All Copy Products and Verticomm. And All Copy Products is the parent company of Verticomm, and Verticomm is the IT managed services division of All Copy Products. Ultimately, who we are is a managed service provider for many different customers. We have several hundred customers that we provide IT managed services to, and that includes thousands of computers and tens of thousands of users across the board. Verticomm has been around since, I think, 1999. I've personally been with Verticomm for 15 years, and then I moved into a role over all of All Copy Products within the last 4 years or so to help drive the technology initiatives, both internal and external, that as it relates to both companies.
Awesome. Well, we're very excited to have you, Will. I myself, my name is Andrew Goodwin. I'm the content marketing specialist here with All Copy and Verticomm. So I've been here about 3.5 years, and I do a lot of different types of content, anything under the sun that we need to we've been modernizing the All Copy and Verticomm image over the last few years, and it's gone really well, I think. I do the social media, I do interviews, case studies, do things like that, blog posts, copywriting, graphic design, anything we need to basically support people like yourself. We want to grow our company and be modern leaders in content and obviously everything that we sell and that we do. So
Yep.
We're Verticomm. We're a managed service provider here out in Denver, Colorado. And I want to ask you, Will, why are we doing this? There are so many podcasts out there today.
Yeah.
Especially in the field of technology. What do we bring to the table that we want to share with everyone?
Yeah, and I think it's more than podcasts as well, right? I mean, ideally it'll be podcast and short form video, and we might even publish this whole thing. I don't know. We'll see what our video guys think about it. But the reason why is because we are growing significantly as a company. And as a part of our growth, we are gaining an enormous amount of experience in things that are unique to our perspective. A lot of times when you're a IT administrator for a company, or if you're a business owner, or if you're just an individual who does not do anything related to IT, there are tons of technology questions that come up that are interesting and hard to understand. And ultimately, we feel like we can provide valuable information that relates to that. And so we are ultimately doing this because we want to be a knowledge sharing resource. We want to provide to those who are willing to listen. And somewhere down the line, it'd be interesting and it'd be great if people would like to come to us and buy our services and use us for that expertise. But right now, it's just to talk about it. I mean, it helps put us into the world and it helps expose us to not only share our opinions, but it also gives people the opportunity to talk about it with us, even challenge our opinions, and to give us the back and forth to have more than just here's what we think. Like, we want to put it out there to share the thought with others. And it comes from a perspective of, like I think I had mentioned prior, like how big we are. We're very unique in the managed IT services space. We have hundreds of clients. It's not tens of clients. We have tens of thousands of users, thousands and thousands of workstations and servers and endpoints and network devices that we do. I think we're one of the largest network vendors in Colorado at this point for a very particular vendor. So we just have a unique perspective, and we want to share and see where it goes.
Yeah, awesome. This is a great segue into perhaps the most talked about thing in
We have to.
2026.
We
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 have to.
we have to talk about it. Yeah, and so AI. We'll jump in and we'll spill the beans. So what our topic is, I think we titled it AI today and tomorrow,
That
right?
is correct. Episode 1 is AI today and tomorrow. And I'll let you take the ball, Will. Why are we talking about this today?
Sure. So first and foremost, there is no shortage of content for AI related media. And I'm actually kind of hesitant, or at least was hesitant, to talk about AI because it's just a drop in the ocean of noise. And I think it's, not even counting all the AI slop that's out there. It's a big topic. So what we bring to this discussion that is really hard for other people to bring is the experience of deploying AI in the real world, not only for ourselves as a 500 plus person company, but also producing services and solutions around AI for our customers. And the benefit that we get here is not only just exposure to it, but we've also invested in its success. We have, as of I think early 2025, we hired a DevOps team and we dedicated them to trying to figure out how to navigate AI and automation and how do we integrate those into our workflows. We've partnered very closely with another managed services provider who has a consultant that we work with on process documentation. So it's not even just us that are trying to figure this out. We've sort of built a team of individuals who are interested in it to come up with solutions that we are comfortable not only using ourselves, but reselling as services. And it's given us the ability to know kind of like why it is we made that decision, why it is that it's something that we can use internally, and why we're comfortable to resell this. When really the right answer around AI is that you need to be pretty cautious. So I think that's the unique side that we can bring. It is not only like AI is cool and AI can do these things, but how do you then apply that in the real world?
And something very fundamental, I think, that a lot of people should be kind of cognizant of and are also maybe asking themselves is as they deploy AI into the real world, because businesses are, very deeply integrated at this point, many of them are, I'd say probably most. It's still early on, but I'd like to know what's real versus what's hype in AI today.
What I think is probably hype. We can start there. Like what is the distant future hold? Are we going to have AI overlords? Is there going to be tremendous amounts of job loss, and how are jobs going to be affected by it? Is it going to make it so that nobody has to work anymore? Is it going to put people out of jobs, entirely? Like, is it going to take your job or my job, or who knows? And I think while like hype is maybe not the right word for it, I think it is noise, certainly. And when you start talking about these like distant future things, and there's like a whole other comment about like what is the distant future? Is it 5 years? Is it 1 year? Is it whatever it is? What we're seeing right now is that AI is not at the point where it's going to replace an entire individual all at once. Like it's not like you can build, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in detail. But it's very good at tasks that it's built for. And when you build an AI and you spend the time and you spend the resources and the effort to build sort of the framework to automate something, that's what's actually required to then introduce AI into that workflow. Um, and as soon as you get away from sort of the like ephemeral, bigger, like AI can do all of a receptionist job or AI can do all of a help desk person's job, like that is enormously challenging. Like to replace an entire role, it's very, very difficult. And we can get into
I
specifics.
think that is a really important thing to say. I don't think that concept is talked about enough, how hard it is, because it's really, really easy to imagine the robot taking over. That's been a thing for decades.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm glad that you said that it's way more complex than people might think.
Yeah, and just like we can even give an example of this. So in order to introduce AI into anything, like anything at all, you must understand what that process is, and you have to not only understand it, you have to write it down because if you don't write it down, you will not accomplish your goal, or you won't know if you've accomplished your goal because you have no way of measuring what you're successful at or what you're bad at. And there are, like, if you think of any individual, like, let's say I work with our Verticomm help desk frequently, and I'm very familiar with that role because I was in it many years ago. I could for sure, like today, what we're actively working on is AI to be the first responder on tickets. So, can an AI look at a request that comes in and intuit or predict, or whatever, what the way that AIs work? Can they determine what is being asked in the ticket? And the answer is, like, universally yes, for sure. Like, if a ticket comes in and you say, what is this ticket? The AI will predict that and categorize it and prioritize it accurately a very high degree of the time. Whereas if you get a ticket and you need something else, or maybe it's not able to do this, uh, or it falls outside the bounds of, like, when you get a ticket that's on this, this, or this, if it falls outside of these, like, predefined conditions, you basically have to get the human introduced again. And what I've learned is that there is no end to the number of things that users can ask for, or that can go wrong with computer systems, or those kind of things. And so, can you eventually get to a point where you can automate a vast majority of these requests? Can you, like, categorize them? Yes, but there's this human element that is always there that's very, very difficult to replace. And humans are very flexible as well. So, if you have an exception in an AI system, unless you've explicitly programmed the exception, it will not know what to do with it.
I guess succinctly, I'd love for you to maybe talk about, is the AI revolution similar to past revolutions that have caused scares in the general public? Because there's two schools of this, right? Like, some say, oh, we've seen this many times with the personal computer, with internet, with the smartphone. Is AI different? Or is it something, like you said, humans can adapt to, and that there will always be a need for the human component in the workplace?
Yeah. Great question. And I'll preface this with two things. One, I'm not a historian, and
Mm-hmm.
two, I'm an optimist. So,
Mm-hmm.
broadly speaking, I have an enormous amount of faith in humanity, and I have an enormous amount of faith in humanity's ability to conform and to be flexible to whatever situation we're thrown into. Like, no comments on will it be rough as we're going through this. Like, I do think that there are some challenges, but to get back to the meat of your question, is this different than other, let's say, ages of technology? And so one, to rephrase the question a little bit, do I think that we are now in the age of artificial intelligence, or that's what it will be referred to? Yes. Like, I
Yeah.
think that this is like the Copper Age, the Iron Age, the Bronze, like the Stone Age, like the age of intelligence is in my opinion, very likely that we are at the very beginning of that. I think that is true. And then going back to your original question of, is this revolution going to be as impactful as other, periods in time that we've seen? I think the Industrial Revolution is, off the top of my head, probably what I would relate the most to this, um, in many ways, and I think the impact could be similar, but also less directly, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So, in the Industrial Revolution, there were workers, and their entire job was to do one thing, right? Like, their entire job was, like, you're going to knit this sock on this seam, and you're going to do that 1,000 times a day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, that was their career, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
it's like I said, I don't know the specifics, but my understanding is that in the Industrial Revolution, like, they worked on a hyper specific task, and they did that 10,000 times. And, like, they made a stitch in a dress, or they made a seam, or they made a part, and it wasn't even the whole part. It was like, you make the part of a part, right? Like, there
Mm-hmm.
was, I remember watching something online about somebody whose, great whatever, his job was to make the fenders, like, for this very specific model of truck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all he did. Like, there was a whole assembly
Yeah.
line for trucks and, all these things.
For 50 years or
But he
something.
made
Yeah.
this, like, front corner piece under the headlight of this truck, and that was his thing. And then when a machine came along, and that machine could just, like, it could stamp out this hunk of steel in the exact form that it was his job to, weld or do, or, whatever it was that he did, his job was gone in its entirety. His job was gone.
Uh-huh.
Whereas today, our jobs are not really like that, right? Like there's very few jobs where your entire role depends on you doing this hyper specific thing. And as I had mentioned before, like AI is really in the very same way. It's very good at doing hyper specific things. And if you take the time to train it and get it to do that, and forgetting sort of the physical interaction with the real world, right? We're talking about digitally, what can it do? And you just run into the reality that people generally don't do just one thing on a computer, right? And an AI can do one thing. So do I think it'll be impactful? Do I think that there is singular things that AI will wholly replace? Yes, for sure. Will it happen at the same scale that it happened with the Industrial Revolution? I don't know. And how is it going to impact people? I think it's happening much faster in one regard, but it's going to be slowed down by all the effort that has to be put into actually putting it in place in the other hand.
Yeah. Yep. It sounds like to me that businesses that aren't adoptive yet probably should start thinking about it.
Yeah, and I'll even take a moment to just sort of go from the last question into this one.
Mhm.
So is there going to be huge impact to society and business on like a revolutionary scale? And I'll take everything I just said and give the short answer: yes. I do think that there will be an enormous impact to society. And the reason why is not because I think AI is going to take every job and that AI is going to do everything and it's going to replace humans in every single world, but I think that because AI will make individuals, even if it's not replacing them, it will make them more efficient. Like that's what we're actively seeing today, is that when you're able to improve somebody's role in, knowing now that we've sort of acknowledged today that people are like many faceted, if you can improve everything they do or even 50% of what they do by 10%,
Mhm.
20%, whatever it is, you will be more productive. You can do more with less, right? So like to simplify, that is a truth that I think is accurate, is that AI will let businesses do more with less. And with that said, it means that as a business owner, as a business leader, as an IT leader, if you are not proactively trying to do more with less,
Mhm.
I mean, at some point, capitalism takes over, right? It's supply and demand. If more people can do more with less, if they can supply more with less, whether it's products or services, the cost to deliver those will go down. And if
Mhm.
your costs do not go down, and your competitors' costs do, there is nothing stopping them from edging you out of the market, right? Like they'll just drop their prices, and then that'll be it. So yeah, I think business owners absolutely need to be thinking about how is it that they keep up with it, and I don't think they need to be perfect. Like there will be companies out there that ignore AI, right? Though my anticipation is they will probably last a while, but they will eventually get taken over by companies with AI. So as long as you're trying right now, you'll be ahead of the pack. I don't think you need to be at the cutting edge, but yeah.
The other good news is you can use it in your business without having to know much. The invention of an LLM was huge.
Mm-hmm.
People weren't using it for the most part until ChatGPT came around. That was the turning point, and
Yep.
that's extremely user friendly, and it'll only get to be more and more applicable to what we're doing at work. So, what's actually working and what isn't is my next question for you. And I guess we can also segue that into the future, because I'm sure you won't know more than this than I do. We are probably trying a lot of AI things
We are. Yeah.
in the tech world. We're trying stuff. Stuff isn't working. Stuff is working. So maybe you can speak to that, some of the trends, some things that we might leave behind, and then maybe what we could think about going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So first of all, just setting the stage here. There's many facets of AI that we're not using here, um, and many of these are indirect experiences that I sort of see from our vendors and that I see online and other resources where I'm sort of building this opinion from. So just disclaimer out of the way. What what I see as not working, and
Hmm.
maybe we'll start with that. What's not working with AI is when you're trying to be generic. So, and it's like a wonderful, obvious struggle where ChatGPT and all these LLMs, these large language models that have sort of exploded into existence, they are when somebody uses them, they are relating them to search engines, like really good search engines. But like that's how most people use it. Like when I go talk to our engineers, or when I talk to our managers, or when I talk to my daughter and my wife and like my peers, what I see them, like everybody gains a benefit from, is like, I'm going to ask the AI a question instead of asking Google, right?
Yep.
Like that's what I've seen. But what has happened is that it's become this very general tool. It's very generalized in the way that it can answer. And that's wonderful for certain things. Like if you want to plug in your company knowledge base and you want to say like, give me information on my data, it's very good at that. But as soon as you start to use that generalized system to perform specific things, which is like it's very easy to fall into this trap of like, oh, it's very capable at answering general questions. Now I'm going to ask it a specific question. That's when they usually fail. And let me expand on that to give you like an example of it. So if you tell ChatGPT that like I have a rash on my arm and you tell it about this like ailment that you have, like maybe you fell into poison ivy or whatever it is, right? But you don't know, or maybe and you're whatever, wherever the breakdown is here, right? You tell it like, hey, I've got these red marks on my arm and it's got these things. Well, it's very good at making broad statements, very good at taking like common things that are going on and drawing out conclusions. It's very hard to give a specific, accurate answer beyond that. And the reason for that, the reason why these models, I even hesitate to say that the models struggle with it. The real struggle is getting the human to ask the right question and getting people to input the right information. So when you build these general systems, and I can say, what's the proper way to do a thing, right? It's probably gonna produce a pretty good result. But as soon as you start asking it to do something specific, especially when you get into what are called like a domain, like a knowledge domain, like you as a human, when you're prompting the AI, you have to give it enough context to be able to answer accurately. And if you don't give it enough information to answer back accurately, then it can't answer back accurately.
But it will attempt to, right?
It will.
Do you see that
It will.
continuing? I know that's obviously a decision made by these companies it's better to pretend to have an answer than to say, I don't know. I'm not sure why that is, but that seems to be the case.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that going to be something we have to kind of accept and deal with going forward?
Yeah. I mean, and this becomes a very societal question of like, what are we as the world going to accept? Absolutely. And it is maybe the way that I would put it is, there are things that we're able to do now with automation at 80% accuracy. And I speak on behalf of us, like as Verticomm. We're able to do things now as a company with 80% accuracy that before we didn't do at all.
Yeah.
So,
that's a trade-off.
So like where is fail? Like what's the risk and reward of implementing the system? And very, very frequently it's like, World of Warcraft. I actually don't know any of the details behind it. But I do know that they have replaced what feels like a large portion of their support system with artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And there's a system that routes these requests. And I know that a big struggle that they have with that system is accuracy. And you can also fake the system where like if you have a group of friends and you're an individual and you run into this like group of players and you do something to wrong them, right? Like you steal their loot or kill their mob, or you look at them the wrong way or whatever it is. If this group of individuals reports your character, all 20 of them, the system intelligently says, oh, 20 people have reported this person for a thing. So I'm going to assume that 20 people had good intentions and I'm going to ban this person automatically.
Yeah.
Even if that person did nothing wrong, right? Why would that be acceptable to a company? And the answer is because previously they did nothing, right? Previously they took no action, or their action that they did take took an enormous amount of manpower, right? If you get 20 reports and you have to then go, like, you tell a human, not only do you have to go read these reports, you have to then go combine these reports into a singular thing. They just weren't getting done at all. So they
That's a
had to
great
make the
example.
choice of, like, do we do nothing, right? And sort of like take the like I said, they share the optimistic route. Like, are we going to believe that most humans are going to do the right thing? Are we going to believe that most humans are going to be capable, maybe in the frame of AI? Are they going to, can we give the right information to the system most of the time and then just accept the outliers? The answer in many cases is yes. And the only time when this really starts to push back against a business, and when it starts to push back against, like, why would a business not do this, is when there's rules and regulation in it, like, that relate to this, or when it's human lives and safety. And so, like, in the medical field, like, why does ChatGPT refuse to be your psychiatrist? Or why does it always defer you to, like, I'm going to give you an opinion, but go talk to a doctor?
Oh, it does say that?
It does, yeah.
Okay,
If
that's
you're
good.
like, I'm, it's like, I feel really sick. The first thing it'll say, it's not going to be like, tell me about your
It'll
symptoms.
say,
It's
"Go
like,
see a doctor."
you should go see a real
Yeah.
professional. And that's not a native behavior of the AI. That's not like an emergent property of the training data. They have to explicitly train the AI to not answer those, and that's because they know that there's risk.
Right. I hope we don't have to start using AI to tackle some moral problems, because you could probably get into some complex, oh, you know what? That form of utilitarianism, I hadn't thought about it, but thank you, AI, for telling me that that's more, optimal for our bottom line or something like that.
It gets very sci-fi very fast. I mean,
Yeah.
there's books, I don't remember what the book is, but where they basically say that we want AI to be our leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, realistically, and I actually believe that that right now our politics and our economy and our world order and everything, like, to be fair, is like I want to be a good person. I want my society to be good, right? I would like to be in what I would consider to be a a free society, and that treats everyone equal.
Just society. Yeah.
And we have tried our best, but without even giving specific examples, there's clearly challenges that we face with this, and there's clearly situations that are hard to find that balance for. And so, like, there is this real world where the challenge becomes, it's no longer that it's just inherently hard to find a balance. It's that there's so many dissenting feelings and opinions and facts. Like, even the real data is so enormous that you almost can't process it without something to help. So, like, I feel like there's certain things that inevitably AI will come into play with, whether I hope that we don't just, like, blindly give it power.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a real thing, and it's a real challenge that we face.
It's interesting. There's these two kind of parallel pathways of, there's always going to be that human need for as higher up you go in the, like your example with your engineers of Verticomm, as higher up you go, there's going to need a human.
Mm-hmm.
But those humans we have our jobs, we have our tasks. Of course, we're going to push the envelope to see, oh, what can the AI do this?
All the
Well,
time.
how can I do this? Can I do this? So it's these two kind of competing paths that I think it'll be interesting to see how that keeps happening.
Yeah, one of the things that we were going to talk about today is, like, the rubber band effect of technology.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
And so it's such a great segue into, like, what are the capabilities of AI today? Like, what can AI do today, and what can it do tomorrow? Like, right as of today, we can trust AI to do basic tasks. We can build automations for it to do these things. We sell as a service to our clients, secure LLMs, right? Secure you, so that, like, if you type in a question or you drop in a PDF that's related to your stuff, the LLM can answer questions about this and sort of be the generalist. And you can even be specific with it. You could even say, like, here's our processes and here's this document, go answer within that context, right? That's like today. Well, where AI is right now, outside of business, outside of, like, what's ready for business, is far beyond that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what we're seeing is, instead of LLMs that are prompt-based, like singular, like back and forth exchanges, we're seeing agents take over. And even this information is frankly kind of dated. Like even like this, even the agentic workflow is, I mean, I say dated, months, like 6 months, a year old. I
Yeah.
mean, it's been rolling around as a concept for a while, but we're really seeing it hit mainstream in a lot of different ways, where an AI can have a request that's been made, but in that same way that you had said earlier, like the AI will try to fulfill the request regardless of what information is provided. You can also sort of inject additional AI into all of these workflows. And not only can you inject AI into sort of like interpret what somebody is saying, like if somebody says, I have a rash on my arm and it has these things, the AI can do a one-shot answer, which means like, okay, I'm only going to take this in this bubble and answer it, versus a multi-shot AI, which is where you pass in the question, it answers it, but before it gives it back to you, it says like, hey, other AI, can you like consider these things for me first? And like maybe there's more information I should pull in. Maybe I should go look up a medical resource or whatever these things are. And so we're seeing these agents that are doing, reasoning is really what this is called, and that's not new. But what is new is their ability to take actions based on requests. So Claude Code, I'm sure if you've heard of Claude
Yep.
Code or
Absolutely.
Codex, or I think Anti-Gravity is the Google one. And what these systems are doing, and OpenClaw is another one. This is like the crazy end of this one is OpenClaw. What these are doing is that instead of, not only are we giving the AI the initial question, the initial tool to answer and to help us solve, we're giving it time to think about it and to reason about what that request is, and we're giving it the ability to go out and find additional information on its own, scrutinize its own answer, scrutinize your question, and we're giving it the ability to take actions based on those requests. And what do I mean by that? On computer systems, predominantly, is where these actions are occurring. And so the sort of like simplest form of this, and really what people want when you tell them AI is like, tell me what emails I missed today, is the question that they have, right? They say like they want to ask, I don't want to read my emails. That's time consuming. I'm going to miss something. Tell me what important emails I got. And then the AI will chatter it off. It's like, oh, you got a message from the owner of this company, or like your key client has messaged you. And then they're like, okay, I'll just file that away in my to-do list for later. That's not really what they want, right? They want to say, hey, AI, what messages did I get? Tell me about it. Oh, and also respond in this manner for me. And and sound good. Like, don't make mistakes and sound good.
And maybe even do what they're asking me to do.
Exactly.
Well.
Yeah. Like, can you go execute that thing?
Yep.
And we're seeing agents that are doing that.
Wow.
Like we're seeing, like right now, we as Verticomm are building agents that have the ability to detect what's called intent in our tickets. So this is the term that we're using, and we're utilizing a term that's sort of in the industry and other providers. But what we're doing is we're saying, can we use an AI? Can we understand what the question is? But can we also detect the intent? And then can we define what the intent is as a workflow that we could then trigger? So if a user calls in and they say, I need help, the first thing that the AI is going to do is it says, I have no idea what your intention is. It's like, I have no idea what that means. But if instead they say, hey, I'd like to do a password reset, we know exactly what procedure to take to do a password reset. And not only do we know what that procedure is, we know how to do it securely. We know where there's challenges with doing it. We know what like problems could come up with it. So using this AI to not only detect the intent, but then to trigger a workflow to go run an automation that then completes the request is absolutely what we're going to see, very, very, we already see it, and we're going to see that advance in the near future.
That might have something to do with why I got on my notes here. You were telling me earlier that there's businesses being created in days that used to take months or years.
Yeah.
And that kind of seems like it's following a similar effect.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's like there's a business. The one that I was referring to specifically was a managed services provider, actually. And I don't remember a lot of the specific details. It was
Okay.
one of my peers that brought it to me. But essentially what it was is that somewhere down in Florida, there is a guy or a team or whatever this entity is, and they are making a managed service provider that is entirely AI first. And so with the intention of, if like somebody calls in, it's not a human that answers the phone. They want it to be AI driven. And when they did this, like I don't know if this is a good example of them doing it in a day, but it
Yeah.
wasn't, it took us, I mean, it was years to get to the level of maturity where Verticomm is, and they've replicated these systems in, I don't know, a year or less, like 6 months. There's other examples of that really is probably more pertinent to this actually. The other example that I'm thinking of is you can build web apps very, very quickly with Claude, or with Codex, or with these tools that are out right now.
Yep.
And there's like right now, there's a company that we're speaking with about doing lifecycle management for employees.
Yeah.
And what they have done is, instead of going out and buying one of these huge, really expensive lifecycle management tools that's broadly available, they just said, well, how about instead we just use AI to write our own application in-house. And these other companies, it took, I mean, I'm sure millions of dollars and months, if not years, of development before they could even go to market with their product. And this other company has said, we're going to do this ourselves. And not only are we going to do it ourselves, we see that this is viable with one person being our developer, and we're using it internally successfully right now. We can resell this. And they were, time frame is for them, even if it took them a year with one person, it's one person, right? So it's compressing the development cycle of many of these things greatly.
That's super interesting. One thing that keeps me optimistic personally is if you kind of take this to its logical endpoint, because you might have someone who's calling the AI MSP with a product that they'd like. That there's nothing stopping that person from having a sort of AI agent that could say, like, make my purchase decisions and then make it happen for me. So what my point being, like, if you imagine the logical endpoint of like it's just AIs talking to each other with no humans involved, that seems unlikely. It seems like we're always going to have to play a role as we kind of go through the future, hopefully.
I think that it is, for me, from the technical perspective, I think AI will attack the roles where humans are involved. And like, especially when you're like, if we take into consideration that business is cold-hearted, like, as much as I hate to say it, right? Like, business, broadly speaking, like corporations, they are cold-hearted, and
Yep.
they're sort of encouraged to be, right? Like, but through our economic model and our societal models and all those things. And the only thing that most businesses ultimately care about at the end of the day, good or bad, right? For whether or not I like it, the reality is that it's how much money they make, and can they continue to make money. And the way that businesses make or lose money, an enormous part of that is how efficient they can do what it is that they do, right? Like how quickly can you make a part, or how quickly can you deliver services, or how little time can you spend on doing this thing while still delivering what is, what you're promising to deliver, whatever that is. And from what I have seen through firsthand experience evaluating our own business and looking at like where are there inefficiencies and what can we improve, almost always you will find inefficiencies in waiting for a human to make a decision. And almost always when you're waiting for these humans to make a decision, if I, as like a business leader or the owner of the company or somebody that's responsible for this, is it easy enough for them to say, like, in 90% of these situations, I always, always, always want you to base your decision on like these 3 things or 4 things, or you're like, whatever the number is, like I don't really want a human making their own decision on behalf of the business, right? Like,
Right.
they need to adhere to like this hyper specific, like, don't get like, if we make maybe we make a mistake or we do something wrong, or maybe like there's a client who's going out of business because they have somebody in their family that's sick and they have to go take care of them. Like, there's this very empathetic human side of things where like the right business answer is very empirical. It's like, no, don't ever give away services. Right? Like, that's just a bad, right? It's just a bad business decision. And so when like owners of companies and boards of companies, especially when they're incentivized and rewarded based on how much money you can save, when you remove the human from that loop and saying it's like, well, I'm sick and I really need help, and like the AI is like, that doesn't fit my criteria. like
Exactly.
it's all so I don't want to poo-poo your optimism.
Well,
But
no, I mean, it's like my favorite part of talking to an LLM is I'll go deep. If it's about something I need help on in my life or
yeah,
something, I can give very, very minute details, and it will remember and respond to each one. Unlike a human,
true.
a
Yeah.
human will respond to the main point you're making, and if they're like a really close friend or something, they'll listen intently. But an AI will remember and respond to every single thing you tell it, and that is the most refreshing feeling I've had in a long time,
Yeah. So
honestly.
yeah,
Yeah.
so a great point. It's like, so not only is there like good reason, sort of like from a business perspective, to replace humans with AI, there's also like a certain level of quality that humans can't adhere to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is very much like if you ask any human to sit at a computer for 8 hours a day, answer the same questions over and over again, like at some point they'll be not interested, right? They're not going to give it their all. Whereas an AI, they don't have emotions, they don't have feelings, and they don't get tired, and they don't, all those
Mm-hmm.
things. If you ask them to be chipper and delightful on every single call and to recite your company jingle, the AI will do that. Whereas like a
Yeah.
human, like speaking from experience, like I won't, like there's certain things that I'm happy to do, and there's certain things that I don't feel like it, and I'm not going to do it on that phone call.
Yeah.
So it's well, here's what I think is I to sort of go back to the optimistic side of this. I am optimistic that humans will be able to identify when and where they care, given the
Mm.
opportunity. Like when they say, could an AI do this better? Could an AI do this faster? Could it do it more empirically correct? We'll be able to see that. Like that is what we will expose to the world, is that like, can it do this better? But ultimately, will we as a society want it to do that?
Yeah.
Like end of life care is a really interesting thing that came up recently here. Like, people that are at the end of their natural lives, like, where like they're just growing older. Do we want to replace that field with robots, like the caregivers? And there's a lot of good reasons. I mean, caring for humans is an enormous amount of work. It's very expensive. And so do we sort of expect, like, I suspect that we'll see them introduced in some ways, but like it feels pretty bad, if it's, with dealing with something that's cold or, is not a human. So we'll be able to see, like, is it actually a better experience, or is it negative, or is it, what are the results?
Right. It's like going back to earlier. That's why I asked pretty early on, like what's working and what's not. We should always be kind of taking in the aftermath of things that we try, and just being very intentional about feedback and what's working.
Yeah.
And I'm open to trying everything like that. That's a crazy idea, but this is what happens. We progress.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the way that we can be successful and we will have to. Like, I think the major voices in the AI world right now are basically saying we need to slow down.
Mm.
Like in like broadly speaking, like, and there's papers written by AI experts on this, and that we need help to slow the system down, and it really does need to come in the form of like global agreements in terms of like, how are we going to do this? Because ultimately, like, if the question is an AI more efficient at commanding battle battalions in like where to go and how to execute things and how to complete tasks,
Yeah.
the answer is yes. Like AI will be better. It will be able to handle information faster. It will be able to make fewer mistakes towards our objectives. It will not care about who is on the ground, right? It's like maybe it can, maybe you can program it to do that. But if there's, then you get into the moral, choice between nations or individuals of like, if one nation says, I'm going to program my AI not to kill civilians,
Mm-hmm.
versus an AI that says, I don't care, I want to accomplish my tasks, like, you're sort of putting yourself at a disadvantage. And so we as society will have to solve that in many regards, like school and care and all the things that has come into play on this. We really should, together as a society, work on it.
Yeah, yeah. And there's not an aspect of life that it's not going to touch. It seems like, at least in our professional life.
I don't think so.
But maybe we could have a part 2 maybe we can segue this into the next topic. It's up to you, but I think we've covered a lot of amazing ground here, but there's so much more we could talk about.
Yes, no, I would love to keep talking about this. And actually, even as I was talking about it, I felt my opinions shifting between everything. Like, I think I said at the very beginning here, do I see this as like an industrial revolution that's going to impact everyone's job? And even as I was talking through, like, no, there are some differences, and like it's very hard to replace an entire person. Like, do I see that happening still? Yes. like it will happen, and like to what degree and what pace it'll happen, I think will differ. But yeah, it's a great topic. Let's carry on. We'll meet up again, and we'll finish off where we started.
Perfect. Well, thanks for tuning in. This is Voices of Verticomm, episode 1. Thank you, Will.
Yes, thank you, Andrew.